Salut la compagnie, welcome to the French Formula. Today we'll learn the basics of wine and what to look for when buying it. To help me with this episode, I've brought on wine enthusiast and host of the Wine Up series, Allison Miché, to teach us some wine basics so you can impress the people you know and elevate the experience, as she says. And of course, you will be learning some useful French expression and vocabulary in the process. Make sure to download the worksheet that come with this video. C'est parti!
Bonjour Allison, welcome to the French Formula channel. I am so happy to have you today for this special video about wine. So you discover wine when you were in Europe, and from there your appreciation for wine has just been growing. So can you tell us more about all of that?
Well, bonjour Aurélie. Merci beaucoup for having me on your channel. I feel very privileged. The first thing that you want to know about wine, if you don't know, is that there are two main categories of it, red wine and white wine. How do you say that in French, Aurélie?
All right, so vin rouge and vin blanc.
Ooh, okay.
Because rouge is the color red and blanc is the color white.
Yes. Okay, I need to add that to my vocabulary so I can sound...
And an easy one, rosé is the same. Easy. Rosé.
Just have to add it properly. Rosé, yeah. Okay, so you have those two categories. And then, of course, you have so many different varieties in red wine and white wine. So let's think. The most popular ones that people probably know for white wine, you have a Chardonnay, you have a Pinot Grigio, you have a Riesling, and you also have a Sauvignon. See, and I'm messing it up again.
I'm gonna help you. Sauvignon Blanc.
Sauvignon Blanc.
Right.
There we go. Yeah, that's my favorite. And then for reds, of course, you have a Merlot, you have Pinot Noir, you have a Malbec, you have Cabernet Sauvignon, you have, those are, the more popular categories. And then there's some other ones that are more specific to like regions and stuff. That's a lot to get into, but those are the ones that people most know. So Aurélie, do you have a favorite that you like to sip on, or?
So the wine that I love is the one from Bourgogne. So here we in France we talk about grape. This is what you present when you say Malbec, Pinot. But in France we mostly talk about region. Les vins de Bourgogne, les vins Côte-du-Rhône, les vins de Bordeaux, and the one that I prefer are the one from Bourgogne because they have a very strong and nice body.
Well, so that's a lot to know. France is pretty much like the home for wine, Europe. So this is exciting. We talk about drinking wine, but what we don't necessarily talk a lot about is what we drink the wine out of. Mm-hmm. Like the wine glasses.
Right.
So did you know that there are like specific glasses for the specific wines?
I do, because in France when we set up the table, we set up with different glasses, but I would love you to tell us more about it.
Sure. So again, there are actual multiple different glasses for reds and whites. It's not necessarily just one universal red glass wine, or there isn't just one, but I'm going to show you an example of one. All right, so for example, this is a red wine glass, and this is, I like to show them both. This is a white wine glass. They're pretty big because I like big glasses. Anyways, the differences between the two that you'll know is that a red wine glass tends to be like broader. It's wider at the base and in the middle at this bowl here, and then the rim is wider, versus a white wine glass that is slimmer all around and the rim is narrower. And the reason that you have these different glasses is to complement the wines. So the winemaker has a certain flavor profile in mind when they make it. And so the glasses go with that. So the red wine glass is this big because it helps to aerate. We talk about aerating a wine and oxidation. It helps with that. And this one helps keep the fruity profiles of the white wine that you have and the carbon dioxide and everything. It's all wonderful science that goes into the winemaking process and also the wine drinking process.
So actually, I have two anecdotes regarding to the glass that really, like you say, really go with the idea of like drinking wine properly. So the first anecdote is, for example, my mom will tell you cannot serve her wine in a glass without what we call the feet, like we say le pied en français, right? Le feet, because for her it doesn't have the same taste. If you give her, she's gonna tell you it doesn't have the same taste. And the second thing, when you talk about the wine being aerate, I will give you the example of my uncle that really enjoy wine. So when he's inviting home and he come with a bottle of wine, he will open his bottle in the morning, let it air out in a carafe, put it back in the bottle to bring into our house, because you still want to present when you come to your guest in the bottle, but the wine has been aerated the whole day, which give a very like all the taste. And my mom, for example, if we open a bottle of wine, she will make sure that she leave a little bit at the end for the next day. Yes, this is how French people are serious about their wine.
Oh, right. Yeah, see, Americans, they don't even do all that. I saw people try to hyper decant, like recognizing that there really is a process to drinking wine. I really think, I like to tell people, it elevates the experience. When you try to rush it, you're not getting the fullness of what the wine is really supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. What I would like to do now is more talk about, the wine itself. We have 4 terms in French that at least I know of. We have la robe. La robe, that I will translate by the dress. And this is what it's kind of the visual aspect of the wine. So can you explain, when, like we do turn the wine, we look at the aspect, how do you call that and what it is?
Well, you would talk about the color. Each one is a bit different, right? Let's look at this. I've had this breathing for a bit. And mostly when looking at it, you'll talk about like the opaqueness, like how transparent is it or not. If you swirl it around in your glass, you want to see if it has legs. So when here with English terms, there's a whole bunch. I don't just hear like one simple term when we're talking about the visual aspect of the wine. So to talk about if it has the legs and if it's rich and if it's dark, and there's also another term with the rim as well, not just the opening of the glass, but looking at the color of it right here, and is it light or is it dark? That's what they'll say.
Right. We have also in French le bouquet, which if I translate literally is like an arrangement of flower, but we use it, in the wine field, and it's all about, the smell. So, for example, for you, do you like smell, like what happened when you smell a wine? What do you look for? Do you really feel like smell the difference? And
oh yeah, definitely. Like for me, when picking up a bottle, looking at the description initially to be like, is this something that I feel I would enjoy, when it talks about the flavor profiles and the notes of it. And so you're not necessarily going to get all of that when you smell it. But when you look for the aroma, you just want to look like, am I getting those hints of what the winemaker said? Some of it, like I said, I know I'm only going to get when I taste it, but I'm still looking for it. So this one talks about notes of like, I think blackberry or blueberry and stuff. So I'm like, do I get a berry aroma when I sniff it? Is that coming through? Or am I just getting, and it happens sometimes with either wines that have gone bad or really cheap wines where it just smells like alcohol.
Gotcha. Okay. So we have this term also in French. It's le tanin. Le tanin, which is like really the body of the wine. How can you describe that?
My uncultured self would just say tannin, but it's le tannin.
Le tanin.
Yeah?
Got
kind
it.
of close?
Yeah.
Okay. And that, when they talk about it, they're talking about like pretty much like the composition of the wine. Pretty much like the compounds and what comes from the fermentation process, particularly with red wine. You don't hear that term when you're talking about white wine because the fermentation process is different. Red wine uses the whole grape versus white wine, it's just a juice. And so you get the tannins from the full grape. So when people talk about that, it's also talking about, again, how it feels in your mouth and whether it's lending any form of bitterness or astringency to the wine flavor.
Right. And there is another term that we use for that exactly, is when the wine is smooth. In French, we're going to say le vin est rond, is round. Like you feel it in your mouth. We say le vin est rond en bouche. You can feel really en bouche.
Everything in the mouth, right. And when I think about that, I think about, the body of the wine. Is it full bodied? Is it light bodied? Is it medium bodied? And is it smooth going down, my throat, or is it a little, a little harsh? So that's good to know. Look, okay, can you just do it one more time for me so I can get it in my mind?
Le tanin.
Le tanin.
So the first one is, do you hyper decant or just regular decant? It's from Leo on Facebook.
Well, I regular decant. I have, maybe it's just me being a little snobbish or bougie, I don't know. But hyper decanting to me kind of defeats the whole purpose again of drinking wine. So if you don't know, hyper decanting is to speed up the decanting process, and people will put the wine in like a blender and Exactly. Put it in a blender and zhuzh it up to make it get frothy and to speed up the oxidation process. But decanting is a little more than just, just the oxygen. So it's just like, no, let me just pour out my bottle. I'll take the time and wait for nature to do what it's supposed to do.
I think you go with just the philosophy of life. If you want to enjoy good stuff, you have to be patient.
Exactly.
It's like we have an expression in French that say vieux comme le bon vin, or vieillir comme le bon vin, meaning that when you get old, you get better, like wine.
Exactly. And you can't speed up that process. That's not how it works.
Right. Okay, I have another question. What does a consumer look for on the label when purchasing a wine to know if it's their palate, which I don't like tart, but I like sweet, I like cherry, I like smoky? This is a question from AJ on Facebook.
It's good to know that you already know what you like and what you don't like, and that will help you. And most wine labels tend to be pretty straightforward. So for example, if you say you like cherries and you look at a wine, it will tell you here are hints of this or that. Now, you have to remember though, when you're buying a wine, it doesn't mean that it tastes exactly like that. So if you like cherries and it says it has notes of cherries and other things, it doesn't mean that when you sip it, it's like, oh yeah, cherries. That's not really how that works. If you like something that's sweet, again, looking for a wine that tells you that it's sweet. So finding out about that grape, that's typical, like a Moscato, which is more of a dessert wine, that will be sweet. Certain Rieslings can be sweet. So just looking for that on the label, they tend to be pretty self-explanatory. And if you don't see it on the label, I say Google it. But I can't just give a straightforward, because I could tell you buy this grape, but that grape itself and how the winemaker did it and where it comes from, the taste is going to be completely different and the notes are going to be completely different than one from somebody else.
Right. Okay, cool. Is there an optimal temperature for different red wine like Cabernet or Pinot? Is from Jody on Facebook.
Typically you hear for like red wine, it's room temperature, right? And so when you think about that though, what we think about as room temperature is technically a little cooler than our present day room temperature because of climate change and where you are in the world. So the optimal temperature for a red wine serving is about from 45 degree Fahrenheit to about 65 degree Fahrenheit. And the higher the temperature is more for the body. So like a medium and full bodied is more like late 50s, high 60s. and a light bodied would be a little lower. So not like chilled, but for us, at least for me in South Florida, somebody's like 50 degrees is chilly. That's chilled to me. But that's experts say that's really like the room temperature that wine is optimal at. Red wine at least.
I do have a question,
Sure.
Allison. So why do Americans drink wine without a meal? Like it's a little bit cliche, but when you look at, for example, the TV show, so you see like, oh, the housewife, like being at 5 p.m. with a glass of wine, and it's just like, what is she doing? Like, what is with that? Can you explain to us?
I'm going to chalk it up to American culture, just specifically around drinking and alcohol. It's not really embedded in society like that. So, the drinking age is 21. So that already creates like this sense of taboo around drinking alcohol. And then secondly, like wine itself isn't a part of the general American culture, only for those, I guess, more so on the West Coast who have grown up in like wine growing regions. So people see wine here as just another regular alcoholic beverage that they drink to get a buzz. But wine has a good PR person behind it, because wine is like, it's sophisticated, it's classy. So somebody's like, well, I want to get buzzed, but I'm a classy person, so I'm gonna just have this glass of wine. Versus thinking about it as I see it as a drink that's more about like community and people, and I think about food and all of that stuff. But people are like, no, I just want a good buzz, but wine's cute. And I can sip it and I can feel nice. So that's why you see Americans just drinking it by itself.
But what is interesting to know is that French people tend to choose a wine for a meal that will match the dish. So if you see, on the east of France with Alsace, northeast, where we have this dish called choucroute, they will pair it with white wine, like you say, Riesling, or wine from Alsace. And if you are eating a bœuf bourguignon, you probably heard about that, bœuf bourguignon, then you will have a wine from Bourgogne, because it's the region. So this is what typically what French people are doing. Another cultural aspect is like, when usually you are invited to someone's house, you're gonna bring a bottle of wine that can be shared if it's the proper wine for the dinner, or if not, the person that receive you, the host, will keep it for later. So that's something very typical that French people do. And to go back to the question I asked, it's pretty intriguing, because I've never seen in French someone drinking wine just by itself. And if someone do that, it will be considered as an alcoholic. It really go with a meal, or it can be drink eventually during this time that we call apéritif. Apéritif, this moment, before the dinner, where you have sneaky food and snack food. And you can eventually have a glass of wine as aperitif, but it's usually a glass of whiskey or another alcohol. So that's the interesting thing, very interesting.
Aurelie, did you just call Americans alcoholics? I think
And just like it just how they portray themselves when this for French people, because as I said at the very beginning of our conversation, for French people the wine is very a noble thing. So it goes with the moment that you drink it, the type of wine that you drink, with who, and also the type of glass. So because it's a noble beverage, you will never go, more than half of the glass. When you pour for you or for your guest, you will never, fill up your glass. And another thing, like we have silent code, silent language is like, if you are you finish your drink, then your host will pour more. If you have a little bit more, then it means that you don't want more, but you're not finishing, because if you finish, that means that you want more. So if you feel like you don't want more because you're going to be driving, going back home, and you don't want to be impolite and say to you, no, I'm good with wine, you just leave it a little bit more in your glass. and we know that you don't want more. Another thing also, if you change wine during the dinner, the host will either give you another glass or will rinse it for you, even though your glass is finished. They will never leave this little thing at the end and just pour another type of wine. It's going to be, clean, or you will have another a clean glass. Because, for French people, I think is really the wine is very synonymous to conviviality and good moment together, family, member of friends. So, I think that's why it's such a big deal in France. Even though we still drink, cheap wine sometimes, but, on a daily basis. My grandmother, she passed when she was 96. She had a beautiful life. She had a glass of wine every day.
Hey, that is words to live by. I need to do that. I'm trying to live a long life. Okay?
Not being buzzed, just one glass of wine
just
every
one
day.
One glass, got it.
Antioxidant. So thank you so much, Allison. Do you want to add anything before we wrap it up?
I just want to say thank you again for having me, and merci. I really enjoy talking about wine. So being on here and talking with you and learning about, wine within the French culture has been very educational for me, and I've taken away a few terms. So thank you so much. And so I'm just very appreciative.
Thank you for being with us. It was I'm very grateful. You accept the invitation and to share also your knowledge with our audience. So you have something coming up this summer, which is season 2 of Wine Up.
Yes. Yeah, which is very exciting. And if anybody has seen the first season, it'll be very different from that. So I'm excited about it and when it comes out, and so just kind of stay tuned and subscribe. Find me on Instagram at Allison Miché, Miche. And you can find me on YouTube with the same thing, Allison Miché. And I also have a website, AllisonMiché.com. It's all very simple and easy to remember.
Love it. Yes. So, and of course, we are going to have, as usual, a little cheat sheet worksheet that go with this video with the vocab that we have mentioned, some cultural aspects. So for the people that are interested, they can download it right here. So thank you so much again, Allison, and see you soon.
Oh, do a little cheers.
Yes. Do you know how we say cheers in French?
No, I don't. You have to teach me.
It's basically to your health. So, à ta santé.
Ooh, say that again?
À ta santé.
À ta santé.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
À ta santé. Cheers. Okay.
All right.
Merci. Bye.